Oh man, I can't believe we watched that movie. Are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Warning. This podcast is about the horror genre.
The horror
specifically
genre.
horror films. As most horror movies are filled with coarse language, violence and/or gore, the topics and language of the cast of the pod will also reflect the genre.
The genre.
If you have any issues with the aforementioned warnings, please press stop. However, if you have no issue with adult language, movie violence, or the accoutrement that accompanies horror films, please feel free to continue. You have been warned.
The accoutrement? The accoutrement. Is that French? Deborah, that is French.
Is it?
Much like the movie Le Massacre de Microwave that we were talking about. No, I'm sorry. The Microwave Massacre. A 1979 film here on Cast of the Pod today. So we have to let you know, Deb, feel free to talk whenever you want to talk.
Okay.
We have to let you know that today is a shorter episode. We're minus 33% of the dream team because in San Antonio, Texas, where we're based out of, the winter storm, the blizzard,
The once every 2 years.
the once every 5 million years. Everything is shut down because it's 31 degrees.
Yep.
And we're locked inside of the house.
Yep.
So we decided, let's watch a horrible movie.
And
And
we did.
just going by the cover of it, the 1979 film, but I think it didn't come out till like 83, but it was filmed in 79. Microwave Massacre. And I picked it just by the cover. And so yeah, Cobweb's not here because he's somewhere where it's really cold. And they're like,
And he has a heater.
yeah. No, but it's really cold, and like their city's like running like normal.
Yep. He's.
And here everything gets shut down.
Hey, don't complain.
Hey, I'm glad. I'm glad. I'm not.
2 days.
2 days off, and we've only recorded one episode because
Because it was cold. And I didn't want to do anything. I just
hey, all y'all can laugh at what y'all want, but when it's 110 degrees and we're like,
we still have to work.
we're okay, and then everybody else in the country's melting. But you know,
Everybody's like, man, it's hot down
not
there.
counting people like in desert areas. But anyways,
Yeah, but over here in San Antonio, it gets really hot.
so if you want to reach out to us, all our social media is Cast of the Pod, CAST of the Pod. Big shout out to Brendan from Upkick MMA. Check out their podcast, Upkick MMA. Sam Haim, you know who you are, Samhain, Sam Haim. Miss Black Cat, and to our anonymous donator who doesn't want their name out there on the Patreon. That's Club 3P. Thank you very much. And if you want to contribute,
Thank you.
yes, if you want to contribute, if you want to help us out here, even if you want to just do $2 a month, hit up
Right.
patreon.com/cast of the pod. And go ahead, Deb,
I'll
say
say
it.
right now, Cobweb is having where the next 30 days, right? Well, it's less than 30 days
Less
now.
than 30 days now.
But everybody who signs up for the Patreon,
Within the next, some out, almost 30 days.
almost 30 days, gets their name put in a drawing. And what do they win?
Nipsey Hussle, limited release, something special. I don't understand vinyl, but it's a
looks really
pretty
cool,
cool
and
thing from what
yeah.
I understand.
Yeah.
I don't understand vinyl, but yeah, it's really cool. So
So go sign up for Patreon right now,
Sco-
even for $2.
go sign up. Go sign up.
So I said so go.
You said go sign up.
Okay, I meant so go.
As
sign
we
up for
return to
Patreon.
the massacre, the microwave massacre. We did not notice on IMDb that before the horror rating, it says comedy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I like those. I like those sometimes too. You know, it's. And I'm glad that they made this a comedy.
Yeah, I'm glad it wasn't.
Because if it was just a horror movie.
Oh, it's a horror movie. There's definitely a horror part in this movie.
Yes, there is.
Okay,
Starting
so
from the beginning of the movie.
so reading on IMDb, fed up of his wife's bad cooking, Donald kills her and turns to cannibalism to satisfy his appetite. So this movie stars Jackie Vernon as Donald. And we're not going to get to that point until later on. In the middle of this movie, I'm like, I know this guy. Please do not look up Jackie Vernon yet. Wait until the middle of this when I let you know. If you don't know who Jackie Vernon is, please do not look up this movie until after you hear the pod. Because in the middle of the movie, I'm like, I need to find out who this guy is.
Because he sounded so familiar.
Let's look it up on IMDb. And then I looked it up and I was like, no! So wait.
He was like literally on his knees and his hands in the air. So
no! So please
like,
just wait because
Josh,
I will put
okay?
in the middle of this, I will put an audio clip together so you can hear. You have been warned.
You have been warned.
Okay, so let's just talk about the movie, okay?
Okay.
So starting off with the intro to the world's biggest fucking microwave.
Yep.
And then it just shows a head just there. And it's like there's no titles, there's no credit, there's no music. It's like, what is this?
And it's zooming in. Like,
And then it cuts to the actual credits. Right?
and it says, Microwave Massacre.
Microwave Massacre. And it's it's a tracking shot of breasts. In a top.
Yeah, it's not naked.
Then it's a tracking shot of her walking away with
She's
her
like swinging her arms.
with her very, very late 70s, early 80s from the back. Looks like there's some definition, but from the side, it's like an ironing board. Bootay.
She looked like she was skiing the way she was moving.
The way she was walking. Skiing down the street.
or skating. Just like.
So I do want to say to those who are connoisseurs of bad horror movie, late 70s, early 80s movie breasts, this is the movie to watch. I mean, it's no Life Force.
Is this quantity and quality?
Yeah. I guess so. It's not the quality of Life Force, but it's definitely way better the quality and not the quantity of Hereditary. This is a nice happy
but there
medium.
is more than one, so that is quantity.
Yeah, there's definitely quantity, and they're not all that bad. So so that's just the intro, just the intro of this movie. And I swear, this guy looks like Charles Fleischer, the
Yes.
Roger Rabbit guy. It's not him.
I
It is
know.
not him.
I thought that was him.
I have to catch my breath after watching this movie. Okay,
This
so
movie made me laugh.
So Boobs McGillicuddy is trying to look into a construction site, right? And as she's bending over to look through these plywood walls that are hiding the construction site, right? That just happened to have
It had like a slit in the wood, but it was like a rectangle, like just
but
enough for
rounded
you
on
to-
the ends.
It didn't.
Yes, it did.
Well, it did afterwards.
Afterward.
But in the beginning, it didn't. It was just a rectangle for her to look at.
Yes.
Like you could see through it, and then that was it.
And as she's peeping through, somebody pinches her on the butt.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Oops!" And she goes forward.
And then on the other side, you see the three
construction workers who are when you think about it, it's like Lenny, Carl, and Homer. Oh my God.
What?
This is Lenny, Carl, and Homer from The Simpsons. The three best friends. Wow. So the three of them, they're eating, right? And two of the guys just have these whatever sandwiches. And then the main guy, Donald, busts out this giant French loaf sandwich with a giant like snow crab, life
It's
size
all
in
huge.
the shell. That's the meat for the sandwich. And he looks at it and he's like, oh. So as this is happening, the boobs get pushed through the slit of the cement.
And then the slit turns into oval.
Well, they had to make it oval so it wouldn't like break her breast. And as it goes through the slit, then they start popping out of the shirt. And as they start popping out of the shirt, then all the construction workers start running.
They're all pushing the other guy.
Yeah.
He was just sitting there trying to eat his lunch.
And then, yeah, that's the intro. That's the intro.
Yeah, that's the intro. And then it goes into the movie.
So we find out the guy with the snow crab sandwich. Oh my God, there's a joke. There is a joke. When
He
Lenny,
says, hey, what do you call that?
the Lenny and Carl guys are sitting there, right? And Donald walks up, Homer walks up with the giant crab in his hands, which you could tell is like a plastic prop or a plastic toy from Wynn's back in the day.
Yeah.
And he's like, hey, what do you call that? He's like, I didn't even have to call it. The little guy just followed me.
And they're like, wah, wah, wah.
Wow. This movie is filled with these bad dad jokes.
Yes. Some of them are funny, some were like, really?
So we find out the Homer, Donald, the guy with the snow crab sandwich, right? He is the main person of the movie. He's who we're going to follow, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have anything to add to him or anything like that?
No, not right now. Not yet.
And he gets home and his wife has this new microwave. And in the time back then, I guess it's not like how it is now, because this is a giant microwave.
It's huge.
That's a huge bitch. But and she's trying to be all fancy, making chicken cordon bleu and stuff like that with her microwave. And she actually says during the movie, I've been slaving over that microwave all day long. So they get home and then he gets home and she's like, I made this chicken cordon bleu, just whatever. And he's like, for years I've just been wanting to have something simple, something I can hold in my hands, like a sandwich, like a bologna and cheese sandwich.
All he wanted was a sandwich.
And she tries to make all this fancy shit and
In the microwave. She's not even cooking.
but the thing
She's
is,
in the microwave.
the thing is, she's trying. You got to give her, her. She's trying, but everything she makes is fucking horrible. She's trying to be fancy. She wants her house all fancy. She calls him a slob. He gets home and she's like, stay off the couch. I just vacuumed everything. You've got your dirty work clothes on. Don't get dirt all over the place. So what does he do? He gets up.
He stands on the couch.
He stands up. Fuck your couch. He's just walking on the couch. So this shows their relationship.
And then he keeps like daydreaming of doing something to her.
Well, no. She's like, the food's almost ready. He's like, no, now. And they show a scene when he's got like a ninja blade. I don't want to say a sword or a katana, maybe. Anyways. And he's like, and he's swinging at her. Then it cuts back to the scene. He's got the newspaper in his hand. He's just swinging the newspaper by himself. He's already dreaming about killing her.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He's about doing stuff to her.
But there's a difference between doing stuff to somebody and chopping the heads off.
Okay.
I'm just the way. I mean, wording. This is an audio podcast. You got, it's gonna.
Okay.
You gotta be a little more. Yeah. So. He tells her, when it comes to cooking, you'd make a great decorator.
Because she decorates it all pretty. The food looks all pretty, but it's all nasty.
So next thing you know, it's showing the relationship of Donald and Roosevelt and Philip are his two friends. But I want to call them Lenny and Carl because they're very Lenny and Carl.
Yeah, I didn't think about that until when you said it. I was like, oh, yeah. And he is.
Watch the movie and you'll get it.
Yeah.
But so they're going to like regular street bars or everything like that. And Donald's like, this is an example of how good this movie is. Good, bad movie this is. Donald says, he's like, I can't remember the last time I had something good to eat, as he's opening the door to the bar. And there's a waitress standing there on a ladder, changing the lights out. And he walks into her crotch first. Face to crotch first.
I don't remember what she tells him. She tells him something, and then he just like looks at her and walks into the bar.
Yeah. This you have been warned. This movie is so bad.
So was it just a bar, or was it like a strip club?
It's a
Because
strip.
there were dancers on the stage.
There were dancers on the stage. It's like it's not even a go-go club. It's just it's something. It's something.
It's funny because another part was a bartender. He's like talking to the other two guys, and then he's like, "I don't want to hear your sad story. I don't want to hear your sad story."
But he's a bartender.
And he's like, "You see that license over there on the wall? It's a what is it? A liquor license, not a therapist license." And then Donald Homer comes in. He's like, "Can you give me a beer?" or whatever he says. And then he's like, "Oh, you better make it double." He's like, "Okay, but I don't want to hear any sad stories."
And he starts telling him a sad story.
I thought
So-
that was funny.
And then they cut back to a scene. Keep in mind, this is a 1979 movie, right?
Mhm.
And you have been warned.
Yep, you have to warn.
Especially in horror movies, and especially in the 70s. It was a different time. I'm not saying it's okay now. It's definitely not okay now. But there are some things that were filmed and okay at the time. And we can't change that. All right?
Yep.
So they're all hanging out at work. It's like lunchtime. And here comes Boobs McGillicuddy. DDD. Her name was DDD. Luann Weber as
She's the one that
DDD.
put
From
her
the-
boobs in the...
From the intro.
Okay.
And she's walking across the work site. And here comes Philip. And he's like, "Hey, how are you doing? Whatever, blah, 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 blah. And I know you're interested in us physical specimen, workers here." And she's like, "I'm sorry, are you addressing me?"
He's like, "Yes, where would you like me to send myself?"
This movie is filled with these things. So he's there and he's trying to throw the Mac on, and she's like, "Oh, I definitely do like these physical specimen construction workers. What about him?" And there's this guy that's just jacked. Even for now, in the 70s, he's like super jacked.
Yeah.
But even in now, he's really jacked. And he's picking up like a giant I-beam with his hands.
He's like just lifting it. Not even working, like he was just exercising.
And he's like, "Oh, you want to meet him? Let's go talk to him over there." She's like, "Really? You introduce me?" He's like, "Oh, definitely. Let's go over
He's a
there."
good guy.
And they go over there and he's all talking and they're like, "Hey, Mike, this is DDD, blah, blah, blah." And she starts touching his chest. He's shirtless and oiled and shiny and everything like that, and abbed out and pectoris maximus and, And she starts rubbing like on his chest and his abs like they did in Captain America. Remember when she's like, "Ooh," and she touches him?
Oh, yeah. I was like, what?
Yeah. And then he's like, "Why do you do this all the time? You always have to do this." Very stereotypical effeminate voice.
He's like, I break out.
Like
And
I said, you've
knew-
been warned. It was a
I-
different time. We're
I
not
already knew that it was gonna be something like that,
some
or
kind
something,
of
some
70s
kind of-
joke, 80s joke.
because the guy was laughing when he was taking. "Oh, you want to go meet him? I'll introduce you." And he's all laughing.
So she's sitting there and she's kind of sad that see, she's just as bad because she was just going after, abs,
Yeah.
And
So he ends up sitting.
he's
with-
like, "Hey, baby, what's wrong?" This is Philip. "What's the problem and all that?" And they start talking. And she's like, "Hey, so you're really nice." And he's like, "Oh, I try to be. I'm like a gentleman over here." And she's like, "Oh, well, that's good because usually guys are only after one thing." And then he looks at her boobs and he's like, "Really? How do they choose which one?" So I'm laughing because we're getting to the 21-minute mark. There was a couple of minutes there that I'm going to have to cut out because Deb was fighting with her dogs. But as we're getting to the 22-minute mark right now in the actual recording, I want to point out it takes 26 minutes into this movie for the first kill, for anything to even resemble horror.
I was like, okay, what's when is it gonna get to, like, all we see right now is, I guess, quantity. I don't know, but I was like, okay, when are we getting to the microwave massacre?
So the whole
part?
point of it is he's just trying to get some food, and then she tells him Napoleon, which is a little scragged out dog. Napoleon eats
so
better
cute.
than you, and he's like, yeah, you have an idea there. And then he's at work. This is the day that DDD comes by.
Yeah.
And he's putting dog food on bread and eating it. It was like that deviled ham spread or whatever, but it had a dog on the cans, dog food.
Some of that, not to get off this, I've never tried dog food, but some of it smells good.
Deb.
What? I
So-
haven't eaten it though.
So he loses his shit because he's having a bad day at work, and then some old lady cuts him off, and she's taking forever, right? And he's like, he goes, you remind me of my mother-in-law that at her funeral. You're taking so long. So little known fact, Rodney Dangerfield was originally supposed to play Donald, but he wanted too much money.
I could see him in this
Playing
this
this role,
Like,
yeah.
I mean, Jackie Vernon did a really good job in this role, but I could see I could see that this role was for Rodney Dangerfield.
Jackie Vernon, I am so glad that he played Donald, because the revelation that we're about to have in a few minutes was so worth it. So worth it. Okay, so he loses his shit. They start arguing with each other. He does this gross thing where he fills his mouth with water and just spits it into the food because it's just garbage food. But still, they're arguing.
And she's like,
She takes the paper plate. She's trying to be fancy. She's trying to make it all French and fancy and everything like that, right? But did you notice she had it served on paper plates?
yes. And then on that one part, I don't know if this is this part or the earlier part when she was like, oh, we need to make it all fancy, and then she turns off the light when she's trying to put on candles to make it all romantic.
Yeah, she sets her punch bowl on fire. That was the first time.
And that's
So-
where you said she's trying. She's trying to, do
Yeah,
something.
yeah. So she puts the plate on his head upside down, rubs it into his hair, and you realize it's a paper plate. Right. I mean, this being too picky, if that was my fault. And he stops and he looks at the camera, directly into the camera, breaking the fourth wall.
I was like, he's looking at the camera.
And he's got this look on his face where he's like, this motherfucker.
You can see it in his eyes already. I'm like, okay,
picks
it's gonna
up-
start.
A giant like pepper mill, like those 1970s, looks like a giant like pawn from a giant chessboard or something like that, right? But it's a salt shaker, and he sprinkles salt into his hand, throws it over his shoulder, and he's like, okay, and starts beating her with the giant salt shaker. Dum, dum, dum. And then they show her fuzzy slippers,
Yeah, and they're all
like
shaking.
shaking, like cheesy shaking, like I don't know how to shake. Well, just and then they stop, and then their feet are kind of moving, and he's like, "Oh well," and dunk, and then they quit shaking. Right.
Oh, we had to throw this in there.
Okay.
Forgot.
Okay.
When he gets there, before all this happens, when he walks in, he's already drunk because this is when he goes to the bar.
The bar, yeah.
And he's all drunk, so he's already drunk when he comes home.
Yes.
And then they get into a fight.
Yes. He's drunk out of his mind, and the bartender's like, "Hey, you can't be like that here. Go drive home." So, after he beats the crap out of her, right? He goes to work the next day, and
He wakes up to go to work.
yeah, he wakes up to go to work, and he's outside, and they have very weird. I won't say weird, but they have swinger next door neighbors. A lot of nudity coming from the next door neighbors, a lot of multiple partner stuff, and all that, right? So he walks outside and he's stretching. He's like, and he looks over to the neighbors and he sees the girl, the lady there, And he kind of gets distracted by that. And it's like, hey, May. The wife's name is May. Hey, May, I'm running late for work. You got any breakfast ready for me yet? So he doesn't even realize that he killed her the night before.
Because he was drunk.
Not making any excuses for him. Don't cancel me. We're not, I'm just telling you how the movie goes.
It's the movie.
Yeah. Blame it on the movie. Anyways. So I forget to breathe as I go into these tirades. And then I get the huge but so as he's there and he's freaking out that he kills her, he opens the microwave looking for food, and she's in there, and he's like, oh, May's in the microwave.
And he closes the door.
And he walks away, walking straight to the camera, looks at the camera like, yoinks. Right?
Yes. I thought the same thing. It was all like cartoonish. Yeah.
And he walks back to the microwave and opens it, and he's like,
I'm sorry. Like, I know she was like dead in the microwave, but it was so funny. I couldn't stop laughing.
This movie knows how bad it is. Hopefully.
Yes. Well, it says comedy. So
even the editing is bad. Oh my god.
See, these are the horrible horror movies that I love. The ones that they make themselves comedy horror, so they know like they're supposed to be bad and funny, and has horror in it. So
he's there on the work site, right? And he doesn't have any food, so there's a truck that drives up, and Lenny and Carl are there. They're getting food, and they get Jumbo Jacks. Jack in the Box Jumbo Jacks from back in the day with that shiny silver wrap. I was like, oh.
I was like, I want one of those. You remember they used to be like 99 cents?
Yeah, less back then. And they're like, hey, what are you doing here? You can't have this garbage food. As soon as May finds out you're eating with us lowly peasants, she's going to kick your ass. He's like, I don't think it's going to be a problem. We've come to an agreement.
Yeah, and he said that they got separated
and this and that.
Blah, blah.
And so he goes home, and I can't remember if this is before the Jumbo Jacks or after the Jumbo Jacks, but he's watching something on TV about somebody that stole some caviar.
I think it's after.
And they couldn't prove the crime because they couldn't find any evidence because the thief ate all the caviar. There was no physical evidence, right? Mm-hmm. So he cuts up May, puts her in the freezer because he doesn't know what to do with her body, right? Mm-hmm. And later on in the evening, he's hungry. So he's walking around and he goes get some ham or some pastrami or something like that from the fridge.
So
what did I miss?
The part that he missed out on, when he had put her in the fridge, right? There was already a whole bunch of meat and stuff that she had put in the fridge
for her experiments,
for her
food
experiments, microwave food. So he was all like, he opened the fridge and he sees all the stuff and he's like, what? And he's all blah 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 blah.
I need to make room.
And so he starts throwing a lot of the food out into the trash can.
Yes, and accidentally throws her hand away.
It's funny because he's wrapping everything in aluminum foil, and when he puts her arm into the fridge, like he's about to close the door, and the arm falls into the trash can, and he doesn't realize. And it's funny because,
and that's when they talk about the perfect crime. Yeah.
And it's funny because, well, not funny, but when the way he wrapped the arm, you could tell it was an arm, like it was all like shaped with the hand and everything, and it was on the top of the trash can. So continue. Okay.
Yes. He comes back later on and he's hungry and he goes to get some of the like pastrami or ham or whatever, right? And he brings it out and it's obviously her arm. Like it's
he has it upside down.
Yeah, he has the forearm part and he's holding it like a sub sandwich, like how some people eat some sandwiches. Breathe. I'm also wearing 3 jackets.
Yeah.
And it's like heavy in here and I need some water. But so he's eating it, right? And he's like, this is pretty good. And then he pulls the tinfoil away and he realizes he has her whole hand with the wedding ring on and everything like that. And he's like, And he keeps on eating it. It's pretty good. So the next day at work, he shows up and he's got some food. And this is something for those of you who know Deb and I or whatever. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Anyways. So he's there with the friends, right? And they're like, oh, what are you eating? He's like, oh, it's something that we just threw together. I've been working on. And they're like, oh, and they steal the food from him. They start eating the food. What was that? Hey, shut up over there. We're podcasting. We're trying to pretend we're like in a huge studio, not in the front room. Shh. The fuck up. So anyways, and they're like, oh, this is great, blah, 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 blah. Hey, no coughing over there.
Sorry.
I've got no cough button set up over here. So they're like, oh man, can you bring more of it? He's like, yeah, I just haven't figured out a good way to prepare it. Then they show he's got like a shish kebab knife blade thing, whatever. And it's got the nice little tomato and the onion and the bell pepper and all the vegetables. And then a hand.
And then more onion.
Like through the back of the hand coming out of the palm. Like an obvious, just a hand right there.
And then more onion. More bell pepper.
Comes back the next day and they love the food. So Lenny and Carl, Roosevelt and Philip are jumping in on it, not knowing that it's human.
They're like, what'd you bring us today?
Yeah, so that's an ongoing gag there that they're eating human, not knowing what it is. Yeah. So he starts realizing that he's going to the bar. Yeah. He didn't automatically become a mass murderer, serial killer, or anything like that. He's at the bar. And at the bar, the bartender kicks out a hooker, a lady of the night, if you will, a sex worker. And so he starts throwing a mac on her, right? And she's like, oh, well, you know, her shoe breaks. And she's like, well, nobody's taking me off my feet tonight. He's like, oh, we can go back to my place and we'll see what happens at my place. And they go back and they start slamming. And apparently he hadn't slammed since 1962. Everything in this movie is back in 1962.
I haven't done this since 1962.
He even told May, she's like, what do you expect me to do with all this food? He goes, remember what we did back in 1962?
And then another time she's like, when's the last time you've been romantic with me?
He's like, 1962. So, and then the smallest, shortest hip thrust in the history of fake sex in the movies. What is that noise?
I don't know. It's outside.
Ooh. Dun, 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 dun. So the shortest hip thrust ever. And he's like, ugh! And then he takes a pillow and he iron claws the pillow to her face. Right. And that was one of the lines he said the day before. They're like, this meat is kind of tough, kind of old. He's like, oh, I'll find something younger and softer. And then that's when he meets the streetwalker. Yeah. Man, this movie. It's a theory that we've had here on Cast of the Pod. Usually the worse the movie is, the more we like to talk about it. I don't want to say the better the pod because I don't know how good this one is, but I'm liking talking about it.
Yeah, me too.
What were you gonna say?
Nothing. Go ahead.
Me? Who are you calling Goathead?
Yes, Goathead. Continue.
So after well, now he's already killed the hooker, but before that, you know how here our brain is all scatterbrained. We go back and forth. He tells the hooker outside of the bar. He says, "You know, you do look much better in the dark." And then after he kills her, he's got her on the table, right? And he's going to start cutting her up. And he says, "Oh my God, I need something to eat. I'm so hungry I can eat a whore." the actual saying being, "I'm so hungry I can eat a horse."
Yeah, but he said whore.
Yeah.
I wish I want to like go back and like write down all the jokes that they had because
I will see this movie again. This will be a playing in the background movie.
Because some of the stuff that they say in this movie is so funny.
So he goes to a hardware store, and this is how most this is how most killers in real life get caught. You know, going and getting wood chippers and going and getting 6 garbage disposals and getting peroxide and acid to clean the house and all that. And he goes to a hardware store, right? And he says, do you have a hardware grocery, however the stores were back in the 70s.
Yeah.
He goes, do you have any 6-foot cookie sheets? And the guy's like, nope. Completely out of that normal size item you're requesting there. Completely not out of the ordinary size. And he was like, what about elephant size cooking bags?
He's like, you know, the Dumbo size.
Dumbo size. He's like, nope, out of those too. He goes, how about 10-gallon mason jars?
I know you have to have those, right?
He's like, nope, fresh out of those too.
And he gets frustrated with them.
He's like, fine.
He's like, get out of here, you weirdo.
And then he leaves. And this is when I thought he was going to get caught. Because the guy goes and picks up the phone, right? And he's like, hello, Coast Guard? And I'm thinking to myself, Coast Guard? Why didn't he call the police? Why didn't he call the SWAT team? Why didn't he call somebody, right? And he goes, hello, Coast Guard? Is the coast clear? Good. And he hangs up.
And then he sees himself in the mirror and he gets scared.
Hello, Coast Guard. Is the coast clear? Good. That is...
And he had a big old smile on his face. He was all happy after he just threw this weirdo out of his store.
And then they show this homeless guy digging through Donald's trash, right? And I'm like, this is how they're going to catch him.
Yep.
This is how they're going to get him. Right? And the guy's digging through there and he finds like moldy bread and
like,
all this stuff.
He puts it in his pocket.
And then he finds this obvious wax hand, badly done. But hey, you suspend your disbelief or whatever. And he picks it up and he doesn't freak out that it's a hand. He doesn't whatever. He uses it to scratch his nuts, uses it to scratch his back, puts it in his jacket pocket.
Walks away. He's like, I just want a back scratcher.
I quit taking notes after a while.
Yeah, me
watching
too.
This movie.
Like, there's too much.
There is just too much going on. This movie goes into a whole bunch of racist things.
We won't say any of that stuff on here.
But we'll allude to it. Like there's a scene where Roosevelt and Philip, Lenny and Carl, are reading the newspaper and they're talking to Donald and they're like, hey, there's a lot of killings, especially over there in your neighborhood. A lot of women disappearing out of places. And then Roosevelt says, Philip says, oh, well, at least he's not a racist killer because the last girl that they kidnapped was black. And then Roosevelt says, that's the kind of killer I like, equal opportunity killer or something like that. And then instantly, as he said, as the son. I'm getting giddy because I'm about to do the release of
Okay.
He says, as soon as they talk about the last victim, the last victim, not of the movie, but of this being a black woman, right? He says, oh, Donald. He goes, you brought the dark meat today. Tastes good. And Donald's like, yeah, I like to switch it up every now and then. That is the least racist of the racist connotations in this movie.
Yeah.
Not only do they it was the late 70s. I'm not saying it's okay. I am not saying it's okay, but I'm sure their intention, as wrong and as racist as it was not intended to.
Yeah, I just need to see this movie.
This is highly recommended. Highly recommended.
We're going to have to tell a cop to watch this movie.
Yes, to go back. Just to. Cobweb, if you're listening to this, my friend, you need to. Yeah.
And then maybe we can podcast it again.
We won't even get into the Asian racism. Like, okay. I'm going to put a clip of it, a photo of It's bad. All right. So before we get to the end of the movie, I'm going to play this clip. All right. You ready?
Yes.
Deborah, you ready?
I'm ready.
I really don't know where to begin, Doc. I've always been sort of a normal fella, you know, just an ordinary Joe. It's true I haven't had sex in about 15 years, but there's a lot of that going around.
Happy birthday! I said my first words, but snowmen can't talk. All right, come on now. What's the joke?
You see, women didn't excite me until I started to, well, I couldn't make it with them unless I imagine, let's say, consuming them afterward. Well, I have to have her for dinner after I screw her.
Happy birthday!
Oh my God! Oh!
This is the part where we had to pause the movie because Josh was like, "Oh my God, do you know who that is? Oh my God!" And I was like,
Wait,
"No, hold on."
Okay.
And then I said, "No, I don't." And so he pauses the movie and then he shows me.
No, I let you hear. Let you hear.
Let me hear the.
And the clip wasn't as edited as the one we just played right now.
And then I was like, "No." And he's like,
wait. For those of y'all who haven't figured it out yet, right? I have gone around my entire adult and child life.
I was like, say because
childhood.
Yeah.
Saying happy birthday because it's one of my favorite characters of all time. Frosty the motherfucking Snowman. Jackie Vernon, Donald, the Microwave Massacre is fucking Frosty the fucking Snowman. Happy birthday. You
I always told Josh how come he
motherfuckers.
didn't have Frosty the Snowman tattooed on somewhere.
Because I'm still planning it. I'm still planning it. I am so glad. I am so glad that I did not know this until the whole movie. I'm like, why the fuck do I know this guy?
Happy birthday.
And then I'm like, okay, well, maybe because I'm thinking he looks like Charles Fleischer. No, but no, there's something about this guy. And then he's there with the psychiatrist, right? Talking to the psychiatrist. And he's talking and talking and talking. And I'm like, I know his voice. Let me look him up on IMDb. And it says known for Microwave Massacre.
Okay.
Frosty the Snowman. What?
I'm glad that you brought that part up, though. The therapist part.
Oh, dude. So he's talking to the therapist, right?
No, Frosty the Snowman is talking to the therapist.
Happy birthday. He's talking to the therapist, and he's explaining all these things, and he's basically confessing to these crimes.
Yep.
And the doctor's there.
You can hear a fly.
Buzzing around and everything like that. And then he's like, ding. I was like, okay, it's $300. And yeah.
He's like, you weren't even listening to me.
He's like, yeah, I was. You're having these problems with your wife, and you feel that there should be this separation. He's like, yeah, but he says, now I'm having sex with all these other women, and I'm eating them. And he's like, yeah, it's no problem. It's the 70s now. It's the 80s. It's a sexual revolution. He's like, it's okay for me to eat a woman? He's like, sure, they love it. Not only do they love it, but, they'll return back the favor. And he's like, so you're okay with me eating women? He's like, yes, go for it.
He's like, they will love you for it.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, okay. He left the office all happy. I'm going to continue eating women.
Shit. This movie, I mean, the next door neighbor, there's so many bad kills in this movie. And there's a scene where some woman's body, for no apparent reason, they're cutting her from neck to belly button.
Well, that's how he does all of them.
Yeah, but except in part. But I mean, in different parts. But like, you see the horrible boob job that they did on this one woman. in real
Has
life.
nothing to do with the movie.
Nothing to do with the movie, but they're using her because I guess she agreed to be nude and have fake blood poured on her, right? But you see her stretch mark. Now, I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with stretch marks. Stretch marks are natural, you know? But then you see the scars underneath her breast.
Again,
And then
has
like,
nothing to do with the movie.
but I just find it amazing because, you know, they try to not show stuff like that in movies. And this one was like, no, okay, we already had all these other boobs. And this is the last person that'll show her boobs. You know, sometimes I look at the wrong shit in movies. It'll piss me off. Like, why is that lamp on that side and now it's over on this side at this angle? Why did they cut that here? Yes, I'm a fucking asshole when it comes to watching movies and details like that. I'm sorry, my bad. Let's just jump to the end of the movie.
Okay, let's do it.
We're just about done. So you find out that he has a pacemaker because he gets a chest pain, and he had had a pacemaker for years apparently. Right.
He went to go see.
He went to the doctor, Dr. Van der Val. His name is Dr. Defal. His first name is Van der Val.
Wonderful.
Wonderful, Dr. Van der Val. And you find out that he has a pacemaker. So it's like, oh, they're loading that in there. And every time he uses the microwave, he starts getting chest pains.
Yeah.
Right.
I thought it was his guilt.
His conscience coming back. But no, it's because microwaves set off pacemakers, especially back then.
Yep. It even had a little.
Yeah. So they're planning on going to the wrestling matches, Lenny, Carl, and Donald. Right. And he's like, yeah, man, let's go to the wrestling matches because the women get crazy at those places. What? Is this my impersonation?
I know.
Okay. So they're waiting for him. He's like, and I'll bring the snacks. Happy birthday. So they're waiting for him and he never shows up. And they walk in and they're all dressed up and everything like that. They walk into the house and they find him dead on the floor.
Yep. They're like, oh my God. He's dead.
And I didn't think, that part doesn't matter. But so Lenny and Carl turn on the light to the microwave for some strange reason.
I think it turned on.
No, they turned on the light.
They turned it on?
They turned on the light. And they see the hands and feet and legs in there and they're like, blah, blah, blah. You know. Then the movie ends. But they show that they're cleaning out the house the next day. I left out the whole scene about the sister-in-law showing up.
Oh, yeah.
And he didn't want to eat the sister-in-law.
She was gross.
And so he doesn't kill her and he has her tied up in the closet the whole time.
He
And
put a bread in her mouth.
A baguette. A French baguette.
In her mouth.
Yeah. And every time you see her, it progressively gets moldier and moldier and moldier. I mean, that's nice attention to detail there.
Yeah. It shows you how long it's been that she's been in there.
Yes. Wow. That was like a G.I. Joe Cobra Hiss tank driving by the... Even though we are on the 44th floor of a 34th floor building. But hello, Coast Guard. Is the coast clear? Good. So they show people taking all the stuff out of his house because the house is for sale, and it's got a sign. It's like 3 bedrooms, 1.5 bath, full kitchen, and then it's scratched out minus microwave. So needless to say, so they're finding everything in the house, right? And then the guy finds a sister-in-law in there. He doesn't even freak out. And he's like, hey, Carl, you got to check this out. Then they show the 2 guys working on the microwave in the kitchen. And there's a sign that says, warning, hazardous to pacemakers. And the guy says, look at this wiring right here. Somebody did it backwards. He goes, yeah, that's dangerous. He goes, especially to somebody that has a pacemaker. In case the audience hasn't figured it out yet. And then the camera goes through the house, gets into the garage where they open it, and the head of May is in the fridge. And it's just there looking at her just like how the movie began.
Yep.
And then her eyes start glowing. Brrr, scary movie in the 70s. Ah, her eyes are glowing. The end.
It goes to dark.
All right. Calculator doom time. You ready?
Yes.
Okay. If you're just looking at how racist the movie is, if you're looking at how bad the filming was, how bad the angles were, how bad the acting is, how bad the set decoration, how bad the clothes, all that horrible stuff, I'm going to go first.
Okay.
Out of a possible 10, 0 being the worst, 10 being the best, I give it a 1.
Give it a 1?
With just the stuff I described.
Oh, okay.
If you're looking at it that way, what do you give it?
Looking at it that way. Or just in general?
No, I literally just said, if you're looking at it, how racist it was, how bad it was filmed, how horrible the acting was, all this bad shit. If you're looking at it like in a technical mindset.
I give it a 2.
You give it a 2. That gives it a 1.5 rating. Now.
The one that counts.
Yes. Yes. Looking at this movie, as in we were watching it, and I'm like, fuck, this is a bad movie. Why did I pick this movie? And then like, up, boobs. And then up, bad acting. Up, plastic hands. Up, they know how bad they are. Up, a million horrible bad dad jokes. Up, now he's eating women, but it's okay. Up, Jack in the Box rappers. Up, when they went to Jack in the Box. And she's like, may I take your order, please? He's like, yeah, lift your shirt. Pull your skirt up a little higher. Do your hair. Take off your glasses. Stick your tongue out. And I'll have a Diet Coke. And they drive up to the window and she's like that.
And they start laughing and drive off.
Taking that type of stuff into consideration. 0 being the worst, 10 being the best. Deb?
I give it an 8.
You give it an 8.
I give it an 8. I really enjoyed this movie. Not one time did I say, why the hell am I watching this movie? When is this movie going to end?
After the first 3 minutes?
No.
Not even then?
No. The movie started and I was like, okay. I'm like, I was already thinking that this movie was nothing what I thought it was going to be. When I saw Microwave Massacre, I didn't think it was going to be this. And I didn't know it was going to be a comedy. I just thought it was going to be a cheesy horror zombie type movie that, whenever it turns on, like people are going to die or whatever.
Yeah.
Type of, 70s type horror movie type thing like that. This movie from beginning to end, well, yes, when they showed, like they went into the movie and it was right on her breast and whatever, it was funny. It was funny because and then the way she was walking, she was like doing her ski walk, and I mean, guys would probably be like, oh crap, blah, blah, blah. But I thought it was funny and it was entertaining and I enjoyed the movie.
You gave it an 8.
And I gave it an 8.
If I was doing like we did for Tammy and the T-Rex, I'd grant this movie like a 42. But I'm not going to give it a 10 because it's not perfect.
It's not perfect, no.
I will agree with your 8. That way I don't have to get on the calculator and do the math and the division and what that is all math. So we know this movie averages down to an 8.
And this movie knows what it is. I hope it knows what it is. Shit. This is up in my Tammy the T-Rex.
Yes, this is definitely
ginger dead man.
Yes.
That type of comedy horror.
Okay.
And I really enjoyed, and I enjoyed it more when I found out it was Frosty the Snowman.
Happy birthday.
That made that, like, I was gonna give it a 6, and then I found that out, and that gave it 2 more points.
Jackie Vernon, aka Frosty the motherfucking Snowman.
And I love the whole cheesy finding you could tell that the arms and the legs were rubber.
Bad, yes.
Yes, and everything was bad about this movie that it was great.
It was so bad it was good.
Yes, and I enjoyed this movie from beginning to end. And if you enjoy that type of movie, I recommend for you to go watch it.
Yes. All right, so that's the end of today's review of the 1979 Not so much a classic, but it has its cult following in certain groups, certain cults, if you will. Midnight Massacre. What? Microwave. That's another movie. That's another movie we were supposed to watch.
Yes.
We just the episode with Cookbook that we were talking about the vampires. They brought up that. Yeah. So Microwave
Massacre.
Microwave Massacre from 1979. It's an hour and 16 minutes long. And I don't have anything. Oh, don't forget. Like, subscribe, share Cast of the Pod on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. I forgot that we had to have a TikTok. And most importantly, over at patreon.com, where you get the stuff early, you get some exclusive behind the scenes, and you're in for the raffle within the next 20-something days for that vinyl. All right, and that's patreon.com/cast of the pod. All right, until next time, I'm Josh.
And I'm Deb.
Cobweb, shout out to you, Dream Team. All right, peace.
Bye, everybody.